got our 1976 F100 that's been sitting, not running for, my guess is at least a few years. Not sure when it was last tagged or registered, but I know the title hasn't been transferred in like 12 years. The thing's been sitting. We've done a little bit of work on it, which you're going to see as we go through. But the goal is to get this thing from sitting dead to at least cranking and possibly even moving under its own power today. So let's give it a crack and see what we can do. You're going to notice a couple different outfit changes during this video because while I'm trying to get it done today is in the future from the other stuff you're going to see today, because I've worked on this thing for like 4 or 5 days total, intermittently every couple hours for a few days, and overall this video is about a week-long process of me doing little things here and there to the truck. So hopefully today is the day that we can kind of put the period on the sentence and get this thing up and running. Let's see what we get. Battery's been charging itself for 3 days now, so we should have full charge on it. We're going to do a little bit of troubleshooting and see if we can't get this thing to hopefully crank tonight. So plan is going to be, first things first, I'm just going to go ahead and just turn the key, see what happens. Maybe with full voltage on the battery it'll spin. I doubt it. And then when that inevitably fails, I think what we're going to do is get a set of jumper cables, and I'm actually going to connect them on ground to the block and actually hit the positive on the starter. Bring them up here and just jump straight off the battery straight to the starter. See if we get anything there. That might work. If that doesn't, then we're going to go ahead and pull this starter, try and clean it up and bench test it and see if we can free it up before we go and throw money at a new one. So go ahead and give that a go, see what happens. It is actually pretty chilly out here. It's like mid-50s right now, which is weird for Florida, but hey, we're making do. I can still wear my shorts, so I'll be fine. Alright, we got voltmeter here. We're going to test this battery and see how much juice it's actually got. 13.2 with the charger on. .4, so we do have juice. Battery cable's hooked back up. I don't see anything doing anything crazy. Nothing's making noise. Voltage is still showing the same with the charger on it, 13.2. We're going to leave the charger on it. Let's go in the cab and see what we get here. So, first things first, I'm going to test some basics. Let's pull the headlight switch out. Left turn signal comes on. When it's off, the left turn signal's on. When you turn left, nothing. When you turn right, it stays on. So clearly there's something going on wonky there. We do have side marker light. We do have headlights. We do have side marker light. We're missing park light up here. Probably just a bulb. We got park light back here. We got tail lights. All right, so we got 2 bulbs out. That ain't bad. We don't have blinkers. That could just be as simple as the blinker relay is frozen up. Sometimes those just go bad. Sometimes banging them around does something. Not in this case. That's okay. Headlights work. That's something. Let's see what this does. Nothing. At least not with the key off. What does this do? It would appear to do nothing. And let's go to this side. Put the key in this guy. I'm also getting nothing. So maybe these switches only do something with the ignition in the on position. So we're going to turn the ignition one click. Switch down here. Nothing. Switch over here. Nothing that I can tell. Switch over here. That is the wipers. So I got smart and I put a sock on that because I didn't want it to scratch the shit out of the windshield, which it's been doing on the other side, so that sucks, but that's all right. So that's wipers. One down. No idea what this does. No idea it would appear on this one either. I thought for sure that would be like a blower fan or something. Let's see what the starter does. Let's make sure she's in park. Clicking, but nothing else. See whatever that might do. Nothing. Yeah, nada. Which leads me to believe that we've got bad grounds and possibly a bad starter. Alright, so since we know we're not getting any action from the key inside, just to kind of rule some stuff out, I'm going to go ahead and just try and jump the starter solenoid. So I'm going to get in here, touch the hot, and touch it to the start wire, the 12-volt switch on the solenoid. I'm getting some really good clicking action, strong voltage through the solenoid, nothing at the starter, which makes me think that starter is probably either bad or stuck and frozen. .8 volts. We're going to also check at the solenoid. Let's see if I can get these both in frame here. You see that? Yeah, there we go. And we're going to touch this to the I lead on the starter solenoid. Let me get a good clean contact point. It's like 4.5 volts. That might be, we might honestly be getting a little weak on the battery again from all that trying to crank. We're at 11.3, so it's down a little. We're getting about 5-ish volts in both of those with the key in the on position. With the key in the off position, we are getting nothing, some strayed millivolts there. And at the coil, the same. So the ignition switch is working and sending voltage to our coil, but it's not the proper amount of voltage. So I should have very close to 12 volts at that ignition coil and at the solenoid. The fact that I've only got half that in both places with the key on makes me think one of two things. A, I'm sure this battery's not fully charged. It was only like 11 and some odd volts after trying to click and crank that thing. I think also there's a bad ground somewhere. Looking at these cables, they're all old. I do have some newer cables. We'll probably go ahead and swap those. I also am wondering if maybe there's some kind of a bad wire between the coil, between the ignition and the coil and the starter. There's so much sketchy wiring on this. I might even do just a hot wire. Once we get the starter working, just run a hot wire right off that starter solenoid straight to the coil to rule out and make sure we're getting proper voltage to do spark testing. But at least it seems to a point the wiring's not completely bad. Nothing's been botched. Nothing's been cut. My assumption was maybe we'd find no volts at that coil. But there is voltage, but it is low enough that that may have been why it wasn't running right or not starting. But obviously from sitting, that starter is stuck. We can try kind of rocking the truck a little bit, but I don't think that's going to do it. I think we're going to have to get underneath and pull this thing out. So that was the saddest, slowest sounding starter I've ever heard in my life. So I think what we're going to do is try and rule out bad connections first. So we're going to go ahead and put jumper cables doubled up as grounds to body and to block and see if that improves the crank. And then if that does work, then we'll go ahead and start replacing some of these battery cables. If that doesn't work, then I may still go and take those cables and go jump right off the starter. So we'll grab those cables and see if we can make this thing sound less like a weird dying walrus. I'm not sure what's going on there. That was a very slow crank, which I don't know. I don't know. So, sounds pretty much exactly the same. Also starts in any gear. And something's smoking, so that's nice. Yeah. My money's on in gear and possibly bad starter solenoid and probably a worn out starter. So, let's dig in. All right, I've got chocks in front of both wheels on one side, just in case this thing is in gear. I'm going to stand off to the side. I've got the leads on one of the bolts going into the starter, into the block for the ground, and the positives connected to the cable right where it lugs in. We're going to skip the solenoid altogether. I'm just going to tap off the battery with the positive and see what happens. And in theory, that should be direct crankage. Let's see. All right, it's another day again, and we're gonna see if we can get this thing to turn over with vigor today. Went to the store, picked up some parts. I'll show you the haul we got. But the gist is all these cables are going. We're going to do all new cables from positive, negative on the battery, negative to block, negative to frame, starter to starter solenoid to positive side of the positive side of the starter solenoid to the positive battery cable. And all of that said and done should eliminate any ground issues we have, any corroded wiring causing bad continuity. All that should be dealt with. So all that in place and a new starter solenoid, cranking system aside from the starter itself should be tip top. We'll do all that and rule out whether or not the starter's good, and then if the starter's not good at that point, we're going to go ahead and yank it and we'll get another one coming. So that's the plan. Ready, break. It's the goodies we got. We got stuff for an oil change. If we can get the thing to crank over and start and run, first thing I want to do is get fresh oil in it because this stuff is nasty. Got some new cables, so we got this is going to be switch side of the starter solenoid. We got one that's going to run, that's going to be our ground from frame to block. New starter solenoid, part number 2SS3 from O'Reilly's. So I think the one that's on there is good, but I'm going to change it anyway, at least have a brand new one on there. We'll take the old one and throw it in the parts pile. Got some brake parts cleaner, some Berrymans to clean out the carb with, and a can of blue paint for once. That's me being real positive thinking, and that'll be eventually, once we get it running, we'll make it look good. So all this stuff's going on today, and I'll show you guys what it looks like once it's all said and done. I'm not going to bore you with battery cable install. That doesn't seem enjoyable at all. All right, bam. So we got the positive, which is black, but I put some red tape around it, which makes it totally OSHA certified. That's running to our new solenoid. Off the switch side, I got it running down brand new cable to the starter itself, and then I ran brand new nice heavy gauge ground to the block off a tab right here. And also off that I ran another brand new line that runs down and grounds to the frame on a spot I cleaned up right there. And there's a good shot of that starter too. So all those cables are new, starter solenoid is new. So we are 100% back in action. Let's twirl the key, see what we get. As long as it doesn't catch on fire, we'll be good. That's the good way to rule out everything else. We replaced all the stuff that really should have been replaced anyway, and we're still in the same boat. Bummer, but verified. All right, got the old starter out. Wasn't too bad. Figured I'd show you guys. This is a reman, but again, I'm not sure exactly how old it is. We're gonna bench test it. So we're going to ground to the case. We're just going to touch positive lead right to the contact and see how it spins. This is the fun part. Well, we got all of our cables installed, good and fancy. Everything's hooked up. Starter is just not starting. I took jumper cables right off the battery, hit it right to grounded the case of it, and hit one right to the terminal on it, and nothing. Sparking, but not cranking. So it's shorted inside the starter. So no wonder that thing was getting hot. I guess if I just sat there and let it crank, it's just cooking because I think it's grounding out inside the case. I could take it apart, try and fix it, but O'Reilly's has a new starter for like $61. So we're just gonna go ahead and put a new one in and see what we get with even more dollars put into it. She's getting real expensive real fast, but isn't that the fun? Alright, so we finally got ourselves our new starter. We're gonna go ahead and get this bad boy unpackaged, shoved up in here, bolted in. See if we can finally get this thing to spin at more than like a quarter of an RPM a minute. So go ahead and climb up underneath, get this thing manhandled up, see what happens. Going in. See if we can slide and shimmy up underneath here. Plop this bad boy in, bolt it up, and connect it all while we're down here. I think I have all of the sockets and wrenches I need. I'd love to not have to climb underneath here 2, 3, 4 times. So, wish me luck. Here's what we're working with. Got the one in, that one's finger tight. Starter's in place. Kind of had to shimmy and jiggle and wiggle, but it's in there with these ridiculous transmission lines in the way. Those need to be rerouted and redone properly. That one's leaking really good, so you have to fix all that. But first things first, let's get this last bolt in. All right. We got our new starter bolted up in there, wired, done. We're going to disconnect the charger from the battery. Not going to touch anything else. We're not going to put any fuel in the car or anything like that. I just want to see how it's going to free crank, and hopefully we actually get some good RPM turn on the crank. That'll also help us make sure that it's actually in park. Then we can try some fuel if we get good crank. Cross your fingers or toes or anything you got. That ain't good. Turning the same, which means this motor's probably locked up. We can put it on jumper cables just to make sure, but I'm thinking this motor's toast. Alright, so we tried it with jumper cables, getting the same thing. So here's what we're going to do. Yank all the spark plugs. See if cranking it with no spark plugs in it gives us any quicker turning. Might even pour something down each cylinder, just see if we can get it unsticked. So I pulled all the plugs on the passenger side. Number 3 here, going back. Pretty rusty. You can see significant rust buildup. It's damp. So maybe this thing sat with the air cleaner off for a while. Got some moisture built up in there. Hard to say. We're gonna yank the driver's side. We're gonna spritz some WD and some other gunk down into these and see if we can crank it with no plugs in it, see if it's any easier to turn. Yeah, but with fuel from pouring it down into that carb. A little bit of moisture. It's funny, it's the third one back on each side. Ooh, a lot of moisture, rust build up in this one. Let's see it again. Let's spray her down. All right, we're gonna hit it with some WD-40 and then some 656 multi-purpose. It's a marine lube. I like to spray it in the 2 strokes. We're gonna hit it with one and then the other, every cylinder. We're gonna focus on these worst ones, which is the third one back here and the last one on the other side. Alright, we got some WD in all these cylinders, as much as we can get anyhow. Let's put this thing in another crank, see what we get. Well, that's a good sign. Seems like it cranks over just fine with no plugs in it. Look at all the crap that blew out of this thing, though. My goodness. Maybe that's all it was. I think what we're going to do is dig around. I'm pretty sure I got a fresh set of 302 spark plugs. So maybe we throw a clean new set in here, throw it all back together, give it another crank, see what we get now that we kind of juiced it up a little bit. Alright, so here's the deal. We took the plugs out, squirted some juice in there, cranked it. Cranks like crazy. Nobody's business. We took one of them plugs, stuck it right here up against the frame. So we're going to see if we've got spark. See if we're lighting things off. So let's zoom in right there. Tell me what you see. Oh yeah, I can see from there, spark. So we know we got spark from the coil into the distributor, so that's good. So now we're gonna put this back on. We're gonna pick just any random plug. We'll take this one, the first one. Plug that one in, do the same thing, and now see if we've got spark out of the coil. or out of the distributor cap. Should be close enough. Let's see what that does. Oh yeah, fat spark. So ignition system's good, I think. So now, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna jimmy some gently used new plugs in here. I've got another set of Autolite 26s from a previous project. We're just gonna give them a quick spray down, clean them up, shove them back in, pour some more fuel down that carb, and see if we've freed it up and if it'll ignite and run. Now, what I might do actually too is the first time I try and crank it, we'll pull the coil wire off. Maybe the distributor is just set, the timing's just set way crazy, and somehow that's what's making it sluggish to crank. I doubt it, but we'll give that a go too and just see what that does. And then we'll take her, you know, take it as it comes. This one's a little interesting. It's mysterious. It's something. Yeah, we're gonna throw these plugs back in and see if it continues to keep cranking just fine, which hopefully it will. But I don't know. It's more mysterious than Michael Scott's suit. So we're gonna find out. I am assuming that all these spark plug wires run to the right spot, but we'll double check that too. Feed all these things back in and give her another go. All right, you've seen this before, but we're gonna give these things a spritz down and a rub. Clean the spark plugs up. Get them reinstalled. And then see how this thing cranks with clean plugs. I'll go ahead and gap these two. I don't know what the gap is on them now. So we'll properly gap them, get them back reinstalled. Try cranking it without spark. Then we'll go ahead and get some fuel into it and crank it with spark. With any luck, it'll make engine noises instead of sounding like that sad walrus thing that it did before. Time to put them back in. All right. We need to go ahead and gap these things when we reinstall. 035 is what we're looking for. I'm not meticulous or picky about a lot of things, but I do take spark plug gap real serious. I also take type of spark plug real serious. These things do not enjoy running on platinum plugs. They don't enjoy running on double tips or any of that fancy other crap. Standard, basic copper core plug is the happiest thing for this engine. So these are standard copper core plugs. They're going to be gapped at the stock 035 setting. And that's going to be their best, happiest life. Alright, let's stick them back in there. Go ahead and just run them in one at a time. second side done. We are back together. Got all the plugs in properly, pretty sure. I'm gonna go ahead and disco the coil real quick. Let's go turn the key forward, see what the cranking sounds like. Alright, well, it sounds like a real crank now, so that's good. We're gonna jack the rear up just in case it's not in park. Pour some fuel down this thing and see what happens. Alright, moment of truth. Got the rear jacked up. So if it is in gear, at least it ain't going anywhere. We got fuel action. You know we got spark. See if we get fire. Woo! She sounds pretty good. Well, it did sound pretty good. How about that? That one, that's so cool. Let's see here. Check some gears. What? Park. Reverse. Neutral. Right. Down in third. We had movement without film. That's it. But she fires right up now. And it's pulling whatever's in that tank. Alright, well, we'll shut it off till we get some trans fluid in it. I don't want to burn up the transmission. But, no, that's great news. We got action. So there we go, guys. A little determination, a little bit of money in parts. We got us a running spoken truck. Most of that is just the crap that I poured into the cylinders that shot out all over the exhaust manifolds, and there's oil that's dripped down from it sitting that's starting to cook off. But hey, all in, we're about what, $1,800 for the truck. I think we spent $88 on all the oddball miscellaneous parts and fluids and things we got for it that we haven't even used all of yet. Didn't pay anything for the new spark plugs. Wires, cap, all that's good, so we didn't spend anything there. 60 bucks on new front tires. I mean, with the tow and all the parts I've got in it, we're at about, let's see, 18, 19, 2050. We're probably about $2,100 all in on this truck right now. I think with some transmission fluid, which I'm out of, and need to get some to top it off. Little trans fluid, I think this thing's a runner. I think we can probably limp it around the block. So may actually go get some trans fluid here tonight. But hey, I'm gonna complete wind as it sits right now. Thought the engine might be locked up. Clearly it's not. All it really needed was the plugs pulled out. We had to spray some WD in there and clean out what's probably some nasty stuck rings. But she's running. She's actually idling okay. Obviously she needs to be tuned on because when you rev it up and it tries to come back down to earth, it stalls. But hey, we got action. It's pulling fuel in the tank, so the fuel pump's good. Add fresh gas, put a new fuel filter in it, top off the transmission fluid, and the next video that you guys see is going to be taking this thing around the block. So, alright, I'm excited, feeling better every day about this truck. What scared me and could possibly been a bad purchase, honestly turned out to be, I think, a real bargain. And I'm excited for it. So we'll play around a little bit more next time when we do more stuff.